features version past in Jonathan past life. From the propositions, we have Kota Kupang. Are you here and complete? All.
We here and complete.
Okay, and from opposition, we have swing team. Are you here and complete? Hi, swing team.
Yes, we are complete.
Okay, thank you. Before we start, I just want to have a quick reminder. I hope everyone has set their own timer, but I set one here too, just in case you need it. Just reminder, before you start your speech, please tell us your prefer of method of your eye. So yeah, just keep off that kind of things to remind before we start the debating. So without further ado, I call upon the first proposition, really to open this debate. Here.
Check, I'm audible.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. I constantly told Iqbal to breaking up with his ex-girlfriend, but he does not hear me at the very first place because he still loves him. But after he realized that his girlfriend is actually bad for his own self, we believe that he actually changed. This means that in this debate, people will be more likely to change based on how is their own incentive, what is kind of beneficial for their own self at the end of the day. That is to say, Jonathan changed based on the movies is simply because his own incentive, it's simply because his own biological instinct to change at the end of the day. That is the reason why we're so proud to propose. Thanks a lot to do my speech. Firstly, how does the setup in here? Firstly, how Jonathan looks like. Jonathan to go to Croatia because he's dad cheating. This just means that Jonathan habits like drunk, smoking, or every time is simply because of he felt and emphasized his daddy issues to his bad habit because he don't know where he have to find it. Note that this is based on his own incentive to drink and smoking. There's no one who told him to smoke. There's no one, even her dad, even his dad does not told him to smoke. It is simply because his own incentive to do. This just means that individual will likely to react if they having an incentive or biological purpose by their own self to do so at the end of the day. But secondly then, how future first version of Sora looks like. Sora is Jonathan's wife that having incentive because she lost her husband, which is Jonathan, to not die. Because Jonathan probably will die in 8 years. Therefore she come to the future because she does not want to probably she doesn't want losing her husband because Jonathan do all of the things because of his trauma that make him to having a bad habit. She's trying so hard to get Jonathan attention to believe on her that she's actually the future wife of Jonathan to actually make him believe on her. That is to say, in that cases, Jonathan is not believe on her because that was just a random girl that suddenly appeared at the end of the day. That is to say, it makes Sore to actually harder for her to make Jonathan believe because it is just Jonathan probably think that it is just a random girl, and Sore constantly do the same thing awake again and again to make Jonathan believe on her. But thirdly, then, what is our stance in here? We said that we believe that Sore is good. She's a great wife. But we believe that with her future presence, it simply make her to become tired and useless at the end of the day. Because Jonathan is not changed in that movies. Jonathan is changed based on his own incentive at the very first place. But fourthly, then, what is the BOP in this debate? Opposition need to prove on how future Sore presence is useful to prevent Jonathan die at the end of the day. But secondly, then, they also need to prove on how on both sides of the house have actually satisfied for what they have to do, satisfied for whatever they do at the end of the day, satisfied for what is the outcome at the end of the day. First argument, then, why it's good for both of them. The ideal condition is that how then Jonathan and Sore could be satisfied for what they have to do, for what is there of how it is can be useful for both of them to actually having a good relationship in the future at the end of the day, right? But the problem on the opposition side of the house because of the presence of future Sore in the past, they let Sore to become tired and then cannot move it on. Three reasons why this is true. Firstly, because Sore has her biological inclination that she wants Jonathan to not die because she really loves him. That is to say, she awake every time every time again and again, and she failed to change Jonathan's habit. And this is worse because they make her to not focusing for herself at the end of the day, to not focus because she constantly focusing on Jonathan because it is her her love. But secondly, then I noticed that Sora is awake in the same situation billions of times because Jonathan still do his bad habit because it is his own incentive to do so. Even if Sora already show her love, her consistency in all of her results to Jonathan not changing at the very first place because it's not his own incentive. Even if you're already showing your love, you cannot change it because it is not your own incentive to do so. Jonathan do this because because we told you in setup that Jonathan having daddy issues. That is the reason why he having an incentive to do so. But thirdly, then this is also because Jonathan is addicted within his bad habit that make Sora harder to change Jonathan because all of alcohol. Addiction from alcohol and cigarette that make him addicted to do so, and probably kind of hard for him to get out because basically Jonathan having find enjoyment in his cigarettes and alcohol, while he doesn't find enjoyment in Sora because at the very first place she thinks Sora is actually a random girl that appears suddenly. And note that this is extremely bad for Sora and Jonathan because firstly, they trap in the same cycle of time that's useless for them. That is to say, even if they trap in the same cycle, note that in that motion they never mentioned that because of Sora presence, it doesn't necessarily mean Jonathan will change. It is changed based on how Jonathan incentive itself, because Jonathan realized that his bad habits is actually worse than his own self. That is the reason why he's changed. While on opposition side of the house, they let these people to trap in the same situation to cannot actually be their own self at the end of the day. But secondly, then it makes Sora harder to moving on her life because of she constantly waking up and she started again and again to actually changing Jonathan for his bad habit. This is extremely bad for Sora because probably Sora's development of life cannot develop at the end of the day because she's focusing for other people, not focusing for herself. But thirdly, that it makes Jonathan to not be as what his own self because of the constant influence by Sora. Not that when you constantly tell influences people that all of this that they should be like what you've want, they cannot develop their own self because they never be their own self. They never giving some space to actually being their own self, whatever they want to do so. That is to say, comparatively to our side of the house, we said that this is better at the end of the day because firstly, Sora focusing on herself. This is because she cannot travel and she realized that she cannot go against the destiny because someone probably would change as basically just because their own incentive. And this is good for Sora because so that life goes on and it is important for you to focusing that can make you develop at the end of the day. Compared to opposition side of the house, you're focusing on other people that probably make you feel tired because they change based on their own incentive, not by your own influence at the very first place. But secondly, then Jonathan is not changed. Not that in that. Jonathan is not changed. That is to say, we're actually make Jonathan to be his own self by his own incentive at the very first place. That is to say, if Sora influenced Jonathan constantly, it makes Jonathan to not having a free space for him to actually develop his own self, to actually be his own self at the end of the day. Because in psychology, if you constantly make these people to be what you want, it is hard for them. It is harder for you to make this people to be. It's harder for these people to develop by his own self at the end of the day. Even if at the worst case, Jonathan probably cannot change at the end of the day. We said this is totally fine at the end of the day because Jonathan still be his own self. But secondly, then Sora moving on her life, moving on from Jonathan, that she realized that it is bad to actually to go against destiny at the end of the day. Sora is satisfied for what already do for what in the past. She can develop her own stuff at the end of the day. But compared to opposition side of the house, they constantly make Sora to actually not moving on and not develop at the end of the day because they are only focusing for other people, not her own self. But second argument then, intended the timeline harm both Joe and Sora. The main goal of an ideal condition is where Joe and Sora live in their life to grow and develop and how it's supposed to be. Firstly, Joe growth successful should be shaped by his own decision, mistake, and experience, not by the Sora script. Having Sora influence distorts with his self-identity. On opposition side of the house, they will never reach the ideal condition. 5 reasons why. Firstly, Joe has to grow on his own self because it is his own decision. But second, Sora energy are drained because she's constantly trying to do so. But thirdly, that it is useful to go back at the very first place because it is not making a change at the very first place prior to propose.
Thank you for the fight speed from the first proposition. To respond the case from first propositions, I call upon the first opposition. Here. Hi, first op, are you here? Who's going to be person? First op. First op. For the swing team. Dun, dun. Ah. Gifnet Jari, swing team, are you here? Can you turn on your camera, please? For the swing team, are you here? Samsung SM.
Hello, opposition side is here.
Oh, you are the swing team, first opposition, right?
Yes.
Okay. You may start your speech. First off, you can start your speech.
Okay, I'm gonna start my speech. First, I'm gonna prefer my
Hi, I think your audio is kind of problematic thing. Can you check your connection or anything? I'm not really here clearly.
Okay, hello, am I audible?
Okay. Kind of good. Oke, tapi agak memantul ya suaranya. Can you try one more time?
Hello, am I
Okay,
audible?
it's great. Good. You can start. You can start right now.
I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Everyone has regret. The only way they could fix it is by going back to the past. The presence of the future could bring could could bring already know the made mistakes. They already know, so they already know what to fix. The setup first, clarification. Even if of his problem, even though he knows he wants to, but he always delays it. That's why Sorry's presence is to underlay his intention, which is fixing him himself. Second, Sorry in the future as a wife that knows the result from her husband's habit, but the past not always known by people. That is why Sorry's presence make her to get know her husband problem and the factor that make her husband like her. The goals we only want future sorry is the only way to fix Jonathan's life. Now move to my first argument. Empowerment through knowledge. The contextualization. In the context of this debate, it's essential to recognize the importance of knowledge and support in helping individuals make better choices in life. The principle of empowerment through knowledge is crucial in, in enabling individuals to take control of their lives and make informed decisions. The problem is, on the opposition's world, Jonathan is left to navigate his life without any guidance or support, leading to a series of poor choices and negative consequences. Now, without Sora's presence, Jonathan is more likely to continue his bad habits, such as smoking and poor eating, which can lead to serious health problems in the future. Motivation is Jonathan's lack of knowledge about the consequences of his actions and his lack of motivations to change his habits are significant factors contributing to his poor choices. The immediate impact of Jonathan's poor choices is a decline in his physical and mental health, which can lead to long-term consequences, such as chronic disease and reduced quality of time. On our side, Sora's presence provides Jonathan with the knowledge and support he needs to make better choices in life. With Sora's guidance, Jonathan is able to learn about the consequences of his actions and develop healthier habits, such as regular exercise and balanced diet. Sora's love and support for Jonathan provide him with the motivation he needs to change his habits and take control of his life. The immediate impact of Sora's presence is a significant improvement in Jonathan's physical and mental health, which can lead to long-term benefits such as reduced risk of chronic disease and improved quality of life. In conclusion, our argument proves that Sarah's presence from the future can have a positive impact on Jonathan's life, enabling him to overcome his bad habits and live a healthier life. This demonstrates the effectiveness of empowerment through knowledge and support in helping individuals making better choices in life. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the fight speech from the first opposition. To respond the case from the first opposition, I call upon the second proposition, Iqbal here.
Panels, please give me a second to set up my speech because the table is kind of fucked up. Can I see the timer? Panitia Zephyr. Oh shoot, we got okay. Never mind. I got my own timer. My preferred pronouns are he. Hey, my preferred POI. Just unmute yourself, and my pronouns are he him. But if you want to mention any of my arguments, please say that it's stated by the deputy leader of oppositions. And I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. To start this debate, 3 points of rebuttal to tackle all of opposition's argument. First, the burden of proof of this debate is not to force someone to fix someone's life. It's not, our goal here is not to make someone to fix others' life. Rather, our main goal or the ideal goal is to make Joe and Sorry happy, and that's the burden that we have to prove on this debate. 2, leader of opposition claims that that under our sets of the house we are actually leave Joe all alone with no guidance whatsoever. We leave him with his smoking and drinking and do whatever he wants to. First thing first, it is his right. So By saying that, it just means the opposition side of the house didn't give Joe to be humane. It just makes that a leader of opposition side of the house didn't treat Joe as a human, where he cannot make a decision on his own, and it just framed Joe as a childish guy who cannot do everything on his own. Second, even the how Joe changed, even in the movie, it means that even Joe changed by his own incentive, not by under Soros' influence. It's just to prove that the chances of Joe to change is still exists on both sides of the house, but the chances of Joe's not change is less likely on opposition, and I will explain to you later why. Three, Soros' guidance is actually bad, simply because it's distort Joe's growth as a human being, because the future knowledge is actually harmful for Joe. Moving on to my first clashes then. First clashes, time is met at Joe and Sore. After hundreds of attempts, Sore finally realized that what's wrong with her attempts this whole time. She just found out that the reason Joe lived in Croatia is because of his father, and he smoked as his way to prevent and ran away from these issues. Also, remember when the time Joe were about to marry Elsa, he was hesitated and didn't want to invite his dad to his wedding just because he didn't have good relationship with his dad. Now that just proved how his dad have a big influence on his behavior. Even when Sore finally found out and realized that trying to manage her way so that Joe can marry his dad. It seems to be it seems to be the time it doesn't want to. Her nose keep bleeding, and time feel run faster and faster. And sorry, even when Sorry tried everything, but nothing actually worked. So it means that it means that no matter how many times that Sorry tries to fix or by go back in the past, it never worked. It won't work. Joe will never change just because of Sorry's presence in Joe's past, and it's actually harmful. Now, proposition's goal here is simple: is to create a world where Sorry and Joe can live their life happily ever after. Now, both Sorry and Joe didn't achieve anything, if Sorry keep coming in Joe's past life. Just to it will just to make it just to drain Sore and probably hurt Jonathan also. Sore will stuck in a loop, and she cannot Sore will just stuck in a loop over and over again because she cannot beat Destiny in order, which already explained in the movie. So as it's just useless for Sore to keep trying and trying. No benefit, straight draining Sore energy by trapped on a time loop. And proposition here believe no one should waste their life trying to fix someone else's life. Joe also has the right to be himself, to make his own decision, and not to live in someone's prescripted. The later explanation is gonna be extended on my second argument. But is there any POI? Going once, going twice, going twice, no POI. Moving on to my second argument. Under our sides of the house, under propositions of the house, we're gonna humane a humane. We wanna treat a human being as how it's supposed to be. Now, first, let's extend Prime Minister cases where she ran out of time. First, Jonathan growth is most likely better under our sides of the house, where he grow on his own, not by under pre-write scripted from Sore that knows most likely everything from the future. Now, two, having future knowledge is harmful. It will make Jonathan's growth is much worse, making him more dependent and fragile, where he cannot make a decision on his own, where he's going to be dependent on the prescripted that given from Sore. Three, it's gonna also reach the timeline where there's no guarantee that Sore can go back to make the futures better. There's no guarantee or where Sore go back to the past to fix Joe's life. There's no guarantee that it will fix Joe's life at the end of the day, and it will just harm Joe's development. Is there any POI? Going once, going twice, going twice. Before moving on to my weighing, first thing first that panels need to notice. Note that quality of life is not just about your health. It's about how happy you are in your life, how your mental state where your mental state were. It's not just based on, oh, if you're not smoking that you live a good quality of life. By having quality of life under our sides of the house, we think that Joe will absolutely have better quality of life since that he can grow on his own better without any prescripted that given by Sore. Comparatively talking, under their sides of the house where they keep Sore to try go back in the past over and over again, there's no benefit from that whatsoever. It just kill Jonathan's growth. It will just drain Sore's energy, and it will and it but simply there's no benefit whatsoever. In the other hand, under our sides of the house, where we oppose this, where we don't want Sore to go back in the time, there are several chances or possibility that likely to happen for Joe and Sore. First thing first, that will already been said in Prime Minister. Sore will moving on her life better. She will not stuck or try to fix someone else's life. Two, Jonathan have uh, better growth. Just like in the movies, he finally changed because the incentive on his own, not by under Soros' influence and not by under Soros' influence. Proud to oppose and propose.
Thank you for the fine speech from the second proposition. To respond the second proposition, I call upon the second opposition. Here. Second op. Hi.
Bikin
Swing tip. Is there any your second is already here or not? For the swing team.
Is my voice audible?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
I can start my speech in 1, 2, 3. Sore's presence in Jonathan's past can have a significant impact on Jonathan's life. Here are some reasons why Sore need to be there for Jonathan. 1. Positive influence. Sore can bring a positive influence into Jonathan's life, helping him become more confident, resilient, and wise in facing challenge. 2. Emotional connection. Sore can help Jonathan experience a deeper emotional connection and better understanding, allowing Jonathan to feel more connected to himself and others. 3. Personal growth. Sore can help Jonathan experience faster and more meaningful personal growth, enabling Jonathan to become a better and more balanced person. 4. Support and motivation. Sore can be a source of support and motivation for Jonathan, helping him overcome obstacles and achieve his goals. As for why Sore's future needs to be in Jonathan's past, it may because 1. Non-linear concept of time. The future and past can interact and influence each other. Thus, Sore's presence in Jonathan's past can be an opportunity for Jonathan to experience positive change before its time. 2. Retroactive influence. Sore's presence in Jonathan's past can have a retroactive influence, so that change that occurred in the past can affect Jonathan's life in the future. The Sore's presence in Jonathan's past can be an opportunity for Jonathan to experience growth, to experience growth, and positive change, and become a better and more balanced person. So proud to so proud in the opposition side.
Thank you for the fight speed from the second opposition. To respond the case from the second opposition, I call upon the third speaker from proposition here. Joy.
Please give me 30 seconds to prepare my speech.
Okay.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Their case is not important and relevant from the first place. Pointing out the flaws from their cases in the first place, there's no clear framing and setup. And first, there's no clear explanation. Opposition said that that we, as proposition, is standing on the idea that we are leaving Joe to navigate his own life, especially because there's lack of knowledge from Joe of the consequences of his own bad habits. Realize that A, Joe is his own individual, and B, Joe is a grown man that is stuck under addiction. We are not leaving Joe to navigate his own life because it is purely not Sore's full responsibility of her life to navigate his life. Sore has her own individual life that she needs to take care of, and that is what opposition fails to realize from the start. Especially if Joe does not want to change. Joe completely understands the consequences of his habits, but because he is addicted, he cannot change that easily. And even if it's bad, he still has the right to live his life however he wants at the end of the day. Second, opposition said that Sore is the only way for Jonathan to change in the first place, which is very ironic for them to say, considering that even in the movie itself, he changes under his own incentive, and he does not change under Sora's influence in the first place. Third, then, opposition fails to realize that the burden of proof here is not how to make Jonathan healthy, and it is not how to make Jonathan change his bad habits so he does not pass away 8 years later, but the burden of proof here is how both of the actors can achieve satisfaction in their own individual lives at the end of the day. Fourth, they fall under the constant framing that Sora's presence can ultimately give Jonathan personal growth, support, motivation, positive change, yada yada yada. But we have to realize that even in the movie. But we have to realize how ironic this is, because if Sore continuously tries to intervene with Jonathan's personal lives, we can actually flip this, and we can say that Sore is intervening with the fact that she's not letting Joe, and she's not allowing Joe to have his own personal growth, because she keeps intervening with his personal life, and therefore giving no room for Joe to actually do whatever he wants, even if at the end of the day that it is, even if at the end of the day, it is bad for him. Sore, in an attempt to save her husband from passing away, keeps trying to time travel back into the past to constantly try and change her husband's bad habits of smoking and drinking. But by seeing the movie, we can already understand that the incentive that Sore is trying to reach is impossible, no matter what type of scenario she thinks of. They say that Joe will get support. They say that Joe will, in their sides, they were saying that Joe will get support, but first was that it is not exclusive, because Jonathan still can get support by his friends or other people, because human have empathy to support one another, but when another human have problem. And it is better. And second, it is better because he does not constantly feel overwhelmed by Sore trying to constantly intervene with his personal life at the end of the day. This already shows our first main argument here, which is the fact that you cannot ever try to change the destiny, or you cannot attempt to change someone to be better if the if the incentive does not come from their own selves in the first place. If Jonathan has the habits of drinking and smoking and ends up passing away 8 years later because of a heart attack, that is simply fate that Sore cannot ever attempt to change. That is how Jonathan's life scenario and journey is already destined to be, and that will come down to what ultimately Sore cannot change. You cannot violate destiny and fate, especially on another person's life. The key framing here is not about how much Sore loves Jonathan, or it's not about how Jonathan can be healthy, but it's the fact that the past and what destiny has already shaped Jonathan's life to be is not something that can be intervened. Realize that the past is the past, and what already happened is never something that you can go against. And this is what ultimately opposition fails to realize. Moving on to my clashes here. First, the reason why it's useless. Again, emphasizing the fact that the key scenario here is the fact that Sore keeps trying to go against time and destiny. And even in the movie itself, you can clearly see that time keeps getting quote unquote angry at Sore because she keeps trying to intervene. She keeps trying to constantly go faster and faster, trying to chase the time before the afternoon or before her time runs out, to make Jonathan meet his dad and ultimately make him change his bad habits and reach her main incentive of quote unquote changing fate. But it is completely useless at the end of the day, because whether in the movie or even if we think logically on our own, we can collectively agree that destiny and fate cannot ever be changed. Comparatively for oppositions, where you are constantly trying to go against a scenario that has already happened and long in place. Second, that why it's bad. Can you imagine how draining it would be to constantly relive the same scenario over and over and over again, and every time you fail, you have to do it all over again from the start? Please realize how draining it would be, both physically and mentally, if you're trying to change someone that doesn't want to change, especially if you ultimately fail to reach your incentive at the end of the day. And because it's useless, Sori will be drained and tired for no reason at all. Comparatively, for oppositions, where Sori continuously tries to change Joe, even if it's useless at the end of the day, just because she loves Joe and she wants to try to change his fate, even though we all realize that that is something that is collectively cannot be changed. Third, then, not giving this is at the end of the day not giving room for Jonathan to develop. Which is something that opposition never brought up, is how Jonathan is also his own individual and how he has the right to dictate what he wants to do in his own life. Because at the end of the day, as a human, it's Jonathan's basic right to live his life however he wants, even if it's ultimately bad for him at the end of the day. Because in the movie, we can see that Jonathan changes not because of story at the end of the day, but Jonathan changes because his own incentive of stopping of drinking and smoking, and that is what ultimately makes him avoid death at the end of the day. And this is something that this is a fate that is led by Jonathan's own personal choice, and not because Sore made him to. Therefore, making all of the arguments that opposition brought that should be discredited. Proud to propose.
Thank you for the fine speech. To respond the case from the third proposition, I call upon the third opposition. Here. Hi, swing team.
My
Okay, thank you.
audio is clear. Okay. I will start.
Okay.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Besides, the government's stance is that Jonathan should simply kept Sore as she is an anonymous girl without questioning her presence. However, from the opposition's perspective, it is far from harmless. Once Jonathan became aware that this presence will alter the course of his figure, he discovered a shock truth. Sora is not just some anonymous figure, she is his future wife, and more importantly, she knows actually who he is and the role she will play in his life. This raises serious ethical and emotional concurrence. If Jonathan's choices are influenced by someone who already know how their figure will unfold, then his autonomy is compressed. His wife's decisions will be shaped not by his own will, but by the preeminent knowledge and intelligence of another person. In other words, this is not longer about a mysterious stranger and train Jonathan Leaf. It is about someone with personal stakes and insiders' knowledge trade his path. That is precisely why we on the opposition reject the government call for uncoining content of Soros' presence. I think that's all my speech.
Thank you for the fine speech to close the debate from the proposition. No, from the opposition. I call upon the reply speaker from the opposition. Here. Reply speaker from opposition, which means that is from swing team. Hi, swing team. Who is going to be the reply speaker? Hi, swing team, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you please give us just 30 seconds because I'm going to prepare.
Okay.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. In this debate, we didn't debate about Jonathan needs to change in the future significantly. But how in this life, Jonathan in the future, Sore came to fix his mistakes. Jonathan and the condition Sore from the future or his wife who loved her who loved him or his spouse. First, contradiction from the government side where they didn't want someone to change forcefully because they didn't know Sore's function, even though Sore's presence at that time. Seconds. Speaker P2 second speaker contradicted with speaker one. They say that change needs to come by themselves, but speaker one says that if he really loves them, so if he really loves her, he will change, even though the girl was anonym, because she is going to be his future wife. Third, in our side, at least there's a feeling to change that will happen that moment, because the warning that Sore gave is hard to do. Is hard to do from Jonathan. Fourth, from the pro side, they only one change came from their self. What they don't know is that what came, and they don't even want to change it. Not as good as the opposition team, because Soren knows what to change in the coming life or in the future life. Fifth, in the government team, their case is distinct, even though they also don't have a conclusion to this, a complete conclusion to their case. Life and also with his wife Sore. Six, the control emotion is better in our side, where he's mad, but he knows at the end of the day it's his wife. Meanwhile, on the opposition, meanwhile, emotional, when the future them married, future get more regret because of Jonathan for Sore, as their wife from her future. She is the only way to solve their problem. Seventh, or the last, from the government team, is out of context by saying it's overwhelming to relive the same thing over and over again. Meanwhile, she only went back to the past once, and it's only to fix what is wrong. And that's all from me. Proud to be the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you for the fine speech from the reply speaker from opposition. To close the debate, I call upon the reply speaker from government team. Here.
Panels, please give me 30 seconds to set up the speech. Okay, am I visible and audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Also, speech in 3, 2, 1. Opposition set up thus simply an ignorance by how they're framing and how they never engage to any of our cases and how they never protect sorry as how they act sorry is not a vulnerable actor in this debate. First, we begin the debate by telling panels that sorry get back to the past will lead into nothing and will have no outcomes whatsoever, no significant outcome whatsoever. First case that we brought to the table is that it will just first case that we brought to the table is that it will by going back to the past it will just only drain sorry because on this debate there's of drain sorry. Now because of this debate there is two vulnerable actor here, sorry and Joe. Propositions of the house here are want to protect both of the actors, but realize opposition really never protects sorry whatsoever. Where protect sorry whatsoever. In the other hand, proposition here care for both. So therefore, we don't want sorry to waste her life stuck in a loop for nothing, and by trying to fix someone else's life. So it simply harms sorry, but because it's simply harder if she stuck there forever. Second cases that we brought here is how it will interrupt the timeline. At the end of the day, it will just harm Joe whatsoever. Joe also. Now it will harm not just Joe's life, but also Joe develop as a human being and growth, and also Joe's life. Now, Sora's appearance already harming Joe at the very first place, where we give reason and explain how it basically happened. First thing first, it's harmful for someone to live in a pre-written script or by living by knowing future knowledge. Two, Joe will change and try to be better simply if there is an incentive on his own. So basically, some of proposition cases also can be discredited and. Chances of Joe to change to be better is also still exists under our sides of the house. Now, simply, our stances is simple. We don't want sorry to go back at the time. Where, in the other hand, oppositions never have any clear stances where they're also being a contradictive from the first speech, second speech to the third speech, even until to the reply speech. They never give any clear stances, and they don't even engage to any of our cases here, and that's what we win. Now, moving on to our first clashes here, principal justifications. Opposition tell us that that Sore gives supports. We say that first, uh, it's not exclusive. It's not exclusive because Joe can get support by other people, but in example by his friends, Marco, by his other companion whatsoever. Joe can still seek support. Joe can still develop on his own. So it's basically their argument about sorry giving support is it's an exclusive. Two, it's useless because we already explained you in LOADLO that by sorry stuck in a time loop, there's no outcome whatsoever. There's no significant changes for Jonathan. Jonathan doesn't aware and he doesn't care at the end of the day. And in the movie it already explained that Joe's change is basically because of the incentive on his own. Three then, but in our sets of the house, we told you that it is better. We told you that this is better at the end because our argument about how Jonathan and Sore have right to be their own self because they're human basic because they have basic human right to do so, and not to mention there's also no engagement from up whatsoever, and that's why we think we should win. Moving on to my second clash here, practical impact. First thing first, we care for both actors here, which is Jonathan and Sore, that can be developed and satisfied by their own self. Not that they're contradicted by, because they told us about this debate. It's not about how Jonathan changed, but their whole cases is about how it can change Jonathan's habit to make him healthier. So here, emotional connections and confidence that lead into positive changes. There is no clear explanation about why this is true and this is important, and it's simply just prove my points about how opposition is an ignorance proud to propose.
Thank you for the debate. I really enjoyed so much. So this is the end of this competition, I guess, for this day, for this round, right? We will start tomorrow again, Azeva, or?
Yes, we'll start tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
You're really doing a great job.